Starting off on Royal Blood in the top right, we have Mao's Esports HeRoMaRinE. In the bottom left, we have Kaizi Gaming's Spirit. As I said in the previous series, Spirit is just playing better than ever before. He really has jumped up a couple of steps. He's not someone who has a lot of peaks or valleys. He's very consistent, and he just is consistently better than he was 4, 5, 6 months ago, whatever. HeRoMaRinE is very steady. He has grown to be a player who can have some peaks and valleys. I think he's always more so seen as the guy who is dependable. He wins a lot of these Open Cups, obviously. But even besides that, you can kind of figure out how he's going to do against most players. And his evaluation is pretty trustworthy a lot of the time, too. His evaluation of himself. So, you know, if he says, I can beat someone, then he's, you know, he's not trying to be overconfident. If he says, I'm going to have trouble, then you know that's probably true. But even if he says I have trouble, things can happen, right? He beat Mario in Katowice, for instance, in the best of 3, even though he said that was going to be extremely difficult to do. But he is dependable, and he does usually get to the semis. Usually get to the finals, actually, but at least the semis. But that hasn't really changed also in the last, basically, 6 months. So where Spirit has over the 6 months, and I'm saying 6 months just because I guess that's the last time we had, like, another tournament, Atlanta. He has been improving, and I think he's really jumped up in the last 3 or 4 months. Basically, 2023 is Spirit's year, man. HeRoMaRinE has stayed mostly solid. HeRoMaRinE has stayed basically the same for the last 6 months. He has, I think, his cocoon, you know, unwrapping and turning into a beautiful butterfly that has everything: macro, micro, game sense, strategies, best stuff planning, cheese as well as macro, so on and so forth. That happened a while ago. So it's great, and he's a really good player, and he, you know, got that top 4 last year at Katowice. That's awesome. But we do kind of expect HeRoMaRinE to do a certain amount of StarCrafting. Spirit, he's still kind of, as far as I figure, he's kind of the new hot thing as far as, well, how good is he going to be? How much does he disturb the natural order of the Open Cups? Which, of course, HeRoMaRinE set that natural order when he just won a bajillion of them and still has, I believe, the most winningest record for the Open Cups. Clem, I believe, is second place. So, let's talk about the actual TvT. So these two should be very evenly matched. It will come down to maybe a little bit of build order luck as well as just who's playing better that day, because I think they are very evenly matched in TvT. And we have Spirit going for a Reactor to Reaper build. So lots of Reapers, decent amount of Hellions. HeRoMaRinE went for a more typical build, I guess so. 2 Reapers and a Hellion is pretty safe, pretty all around. You get to that factory for the Cyclone fairly quickly, so that's going to be your big boss unit to deal with something like this. However, you still need to be really careful with it. The Cyclone, a bit of a glass cannon, only targets 1 unit at a time as well, right? So it just, you know, when you have a plethora of low quality units, then something like a Cyclone could have trouble. But theoretically, the situation happens a lot in TvT. Should be fine. Should be totally fine. You just need to micro that Cyclone is all. Just need to actually micro. So be prepared, constantly tabbing back to your units and going toward your natural. And then you should be fine. Spirit could try and divvy things up, though. If he goes into the main base with the Reapers, he could kill a couple of SCVs before anything respawns. It looks exactly what he's going to do. So he could have tried overwhelming, right? And that wouldn't have worked out because HeRoMaRinE is very prepared for that. So he's going to try and divvy things up, which HeRoMaRinE, there's really no winning for the defensive guy. You just can't quite tell where they're going to pop up. At best, maybe a unit on like sneaking out and trying to discover it. But this is pretty ideal, I would say, for HeRoMaRinE. 4 SCVs go down. He kills 90% of the army. A single Reaper left over to tell the tale. I'd say that feels pretty good for HeRoMaRinE, who has that jump start on the tank production and on the Raven production, of which he just decided to only get 1. So Spirit will have more Ravens. The Spirit kind of nipping the potential push in the bud, just wanted to get out there, get a lock on something important, as he realizes he could be in trouble. You know, it's not a whole lot of units right now for either player, as we're still in that fairly tech-heavy section. You can get a lot of units if you go for Reactive Reapers, of course, but we're in the very much depending on Raven Cyclone tanks, the big units of the game. And so if HeRoMaRinE did push across with the tank and then rally the second tank, I mean, Spirit could theoretically be in trouble. You'd find a way to probably out-position it, use a clever auto turret, wait for interference makers, whatever, but yeah. So he plays it nice and safe. You do have a bunker at this time. I think that is just absolutely a sign that Spirit took the threat seriously. So I'm not just spewing hot air here. And now it is perhaps Spirit's turn to consider going across the map. He has double Raven, he has double tanks. He also could do some damage. He found himself in a decent position, but he actually doesn't really know what his opponent's following up with. Last thing he saw was a fake cloak or something really weird with the scouting. It might be just weird scouting. So this actually might be the tech lab spinning on a barracks. There we go. And the starport hadn't been double checked. So that can happen. That just looked weird. So yeah, I don't think it was fake cloak. I didn't see fake cloak on the production tab, right? I think so. Anywho, well, he had double check, and now it knows exactly what's going on. So it wasn't so much really about whether he thought he was like actually cloaked Banshee, although you do want to double check. It does occasionally happen. I would say it's more about, are they going into a second Raven? Are they going into Vikings? And with the setup like it is here, you know that they're not going to go into Vikings. They would have had the starport on the first reactor already with a couple of Vikings, not just the simple single Viking that was created to push away a Raven harassment. You know they're going to go into Marine tank. So Spirit Shift Fury is double the Raven power. Sorry, triple the Raven power. He got to 3 Ravens, and he saved this Raven from that Viking that was definitely haunting him. Also Spirit, well, trading out, I guess. Okay, fair enough. Trading out the Cyclones. Good enough. And yeah, now the getting defensive is really no opening for either player quite yet, but knowing the type of composition your opponent's getting to is fairly important, right? If HeRoMaRinE was going into the same number of Ravens, or 2 instead of 3, and then into Vikings, he'd be looking for more of a siege up, a slow push, picking off his opponent's units. If he transferred everything over into more Marine production, then we know he's probably going to add on medevacs faster, he's going to have stim faster, he's going to have combat shields faster, he's going to be mobile faster, and have that quantity of units that Spirit is somewhat lacking. But he has quality units that he really should be repairing as well, and he realized that too. I've seen some YouTube content, pretty fun stuff. Thank you, Anti-Swipe. Appreciate you checking out my Twitch channel after that. So here we go, mobility in action. 2 medevacs head into a very barren third base, or natural, sorry, and the main attack goes over into the third base, hoping to find Spirit out of position. Just a couple interference magics already starting to look to break Spirit's defense, but ditto from Spirit. So it wasn't quite the break that HeRoMaRinE is looking for, but the natural drop did everything. 26 SCVs going down, Command Center is going to go down, and Spirit is basically dead. As simple as that. How does Spirit stop that from happening in future games? Hard to say, actually. The Vikings don't necessarily want to be always apart from the Ravens, because if they do hit you all in one position, you could be in trouble. And then you don't know where exactly they're going to be dropping anyways. I mean, the Vikings could have positioned themselves here, realistically, and that would have been fair. And what if they tried dropping into your main base? If they had positioned themselves over to the right side, that would have been extremely fortunate. I can't even say that you could predict that. Maybe you could have a spotter off to the right side a bit faster. That's true. And otherwise, maybe that tank... Well, the tank popped out after the drop. So, yeah, this was really tough. Knowing where they're coming in from would have been Spirit's best bet to defend everything, but that would have been difficult to do. And it's not like his counterattack is particularly fearsome. Spirit might have some decent upgrades, but he still doesn't have combat shields, so it's actually not comparable. Upgrades about to even up anyways. HeRoMaRiNE's single drop of 5 Marines gonna make sure this is completely all in, which it already was, but even more so now. And Spirit is just playing the game out to say that he played it out at this point. I think he knows he's dead. When you see the setup like it is here, that doesn't give you any hope. And yeah, there's the tap out. GG. Hey, right, Narkit. Some people will say, you know, using less Twitter is good, but my Twitter was never toxic. I just, you know, was like keeping in touch with esports, watching what my old friends are doing. Be sad if it left. Anyways, next game. Like I said, super quick. Top left it is HeRoMaRinE. Bottom right it is Spirit. And we do have a game 1 that made it look like this is going to be super one-sided. Because that was fairly one-sided. Just a simple execution of the drop, and boom, suddenly Spirit was dead. Like I said, Vikings in position would have stopped a lot of that. Perhaps you pull one tank away from the front lines and put it in the natural might have helped as well. But it was just a really perfectly timed attack, because I think it was also before Spirit's other tank arrived, right? So it couldn't have been sieged up. It couldn't have been ready. Before another round of Marines popped out, too, to help support. I think if Spirit maybe also had gotten not just a scout on the actual double medevac drop somehow, but if he had also gotten a more complete scout on the attack that was hitting his third base, he might have been able to tell that was lacking some units and then been more suspicious of a drop. It's hard for Spirit, similar to how it was hard versus when we were talking about a Protoss player a couple of series ago. When the Protoss player has a few number of units, they can't just spread everything out all willy-nilly, and most importantly, they don't know exactly what they're spreading out to. They don't know if the main attack is hitting the third of the natural and the drop's hitting the main, or vice versa. So that was also Spirit's problem. He might have figured out, as I was pointing out with the scouting on HeRoMaRiNE's production setup, he might have figured out that this is going to be something with faster medevacs. Like, I'm going to be the one that has to be well positioned. So he might have been totally mentally prepared for it, but how do you actually completely scout where your opponent's going to hit with what? You can get basically a little lucky. Vikings in the right position, or Marine sent out the scout just as the army's coming through. But it's obviously not impossible to defend, otherwise TvT would really just be full of those builds. And just like people like, you know, closing their eyes and just like boosting through, right? It's not that simple. So I'm sure Spirit knows what he did wrong. I'd have to look back at the game and catch what could have been done. But it was very one-sided. That's it's sometimes how TvT goes, sometimes how StarCraft goes in general. Like, you can't really form an opinion on a single game. That's why we have best ofs. That's the beauty of it. So Spirit is going to open up with the same opener as last game. All these Reapers, all these Hellions. Trying to optimize the build as much as possible, too, with this, like, supply depot here, not bothering to wall off. Weak against Hellion rushes, of course, which HeRoMaRinE is not doing. But then if Spirit caught the Hellions, his Reaper Hellion squad might actually win against that. Anyways. But yeah. Point is, you don't usually have to worry about a wall. In TvT, maybe 20% of TvTs include the wall doing something. So Spirit just has a very optimal build right now, because I don't think he scouted either. Right? Yeah, factory opened, so. No reason to do that. And it might be that he's going to try and just bust the front. Yeah. That's exactly what he's trying to do. So he's not committing to as many Reapers. 2 less, I believe, than last game. He was hoping that since maybe the first game, HeRoMaRinE got attacked in 2 different places, that maybe HeRoMaRinE would put the Cyclone here. All right, and be prepared for either a jump up or an attack of the natural. And that little bit of a delay means the Reapers get a little more of a snowball going. Which, yeah, I could see that. I mean, this isn't the best Reaper hop-up spot, but it is a Reaper hop-up spot, so that's possible, but it didn't happen. HeRoMaRiNE's units were all on the ramp, which meant that even in lower numbers, they were going to do fine. And Spirit, well, at least he saves his 4 Reapers for a backstab, potentially at a later time. But I would say that HeRoMaRinE was fairly happy with how he defended in the first game. I think he should be very happy with how he defends in the second, because he's actually still ahead 3 workers. Last game, he was like 2 workers behind, but he had some of that technology to help him, the faster tank. In this game, he's just straight up ahead. He's got 2 Cyclones about to lock onto his opponents. Reapers will help. And actually, this will be a trade. Yeah, thank goodness for Reapers. With all the brush hiding vision, I have no idea if HeRoMaRinE actually saw this Raven. These Marines were positioned, I believe, for the Reaper backstab. And almost helped versus the Raven. Almost. Yeah, Raven's not going to do anything right now. And that Raven was fairly ineffective in the last game, too. Am I gonna put my Xenogears playthrough on YouTube? Probably not. My main YouTube is pretty much just for StarCraft. I don't think making yet another YouTube is all that beneficial. Raven's still sharking around. It's not just threatening auto turret harassment, it's also getting some scouting done, which I do still think was ultimately a good thing in the last game. It just didn't see what it really needed to see, which is too many Vex flying into his natural. So he knows that there's continued Raven production, which is different from last game. They're both going into a more similar type of composition, which is very tech heavy. So they're both going to have 3 Ravens. Only one of them actually is going to go into Vikings. Okay, there we go. Yeah, HeRoMaRinE just finished swapping his starport over. So yeah, both of them go to Vikings. And so their stim and combat shield should be quite even. Spirits, he did fall behind by 3 workers, so I guess that's hitting him with the barracks production now. More importantly, a fight is happening. It's a little bit awkward for HeRoMaRinE, though. That was a very awkward fight for HeRoMaRinE, and the Reapers somehow, minute 6.5 in this game, still helping out. The concave set up from Spirit, beautiful. Tank rallies in to further help that concave cause. And yeah, I think HeRoMaRinE just started that fight weird. He had mostly his Marines, and there weren't that many of them, by the way. He had like 6 Marines mostly take that initial fight with the Ravens. The tanks were so far behind, they really weren't impacting things. So Spirit, I think, can set up that Raven tank dynamic way better. And so much so that he might just win the game. So another one-sided TvT, perhaps. HeRoMaRinE should not give up right now, but he also would identify in the situation that he is very much in trouble. He has no way to securely leave his base. As soon as he tries to even force a base trade, I mean, Spirit would see it and just react to it. He's losing all of his tanks, he tries to reposition them, and there you go, GG. Yeah. The food was fantastic, by the way. We got oysters, which is really only like one type of oyster that we like, but still. And, oh, scallop and pasta, which was delicious. I really want that pasta again. I think what I just really liked, honestly, I mean, the scallops were good, but I think I just really liked the rose pasta, I think is what they call it, right? Where it's like that creamy red sauce. Oh, dear God. Oh, my God. I should make that tonight. Anyways, bottom right here, Marine, top left Spirit. After having a pizza for lunch, it's probably extremely healthy. Little Mama Celeste pizza, you know, ain't no shame in that. I actually really wasn't that hungry. Pizza was the only thing that was appealing to me. I was worried about crashing during this cast, though. Like, I would love to be a person who really, you know, usually listens to their stomach. I'm getting better at it, but like, if I don't eat at all, then I wouldn't be eating until like 5:30. That might be bad. I don't know. I haven't tested it. Super riveting conversation, I know, guys. So we have a TvT. We have a TvT. Tied up series. It's technically a series. This is when the casters would be like, we got a series in our hands. But is it, though? Is it really? We had 2 one-sided games for both players. So I don't... This is feeling more like a coin flip than a series. And I don't think that's true as far as the build orders go. I don't think the build orders are what's causing this to sway so heavily one way or the other. But particular executions, what's going on here. HeRoMaRinE in the first game got double drop, completely blindsiding Spirit. That was doing enough damage to win the game, even though his main attack wasn't. Killing 30 SCVs, that's enough, and an orbital. Second game, Spirit didn't win it so much as I think HeRoMaRinE really did throw it quite hard. Now, maybe HeRoMaRinE always struggles with that particular attack. He let Spirit get too far anyways, and he was already a little panicked, and that's why he took the engagement how he did. I could definitely see that, so definitely give HeRoMaRinE the benefit of the doubt there. But HeRoMaRinE still, I think, more so took the bad engagement than Spirit took a great one. So in that way, I guess, if it's like, you know, HeRoMaRinE wins and then is the one that causes the problem in the second, I mean, if he doesn't cause any problems in the third game, then he wins again, right? If only it was so easy. If only StarCraft 2 was a game where you could play perfectly and the other person wouldn't force errors on you. which I think is probably what happened in that last game. Spirit got into a good enough position before HeRoMaRinE could respond, so HeRoMaRinE was panicked, maybe is the right word, to try and engage. Now we have a flipped script. It is HeRoMaRinE going for the Reactored Reapers, and Spirit going for a 2 Reaper? Yeah. Where's the other one? Oh, the 2 Reapers are here, and Marine's in the bunker. Okay, gotcha. 2 Reapers into 1-1-1. So he should be totally fine, though, is that, like, so natural ramps are supposed to make you more defensive. HeRoMaRinE might look a little weird going for a main attack, I suppose you would call it. You only went 3 Reapers, 2 Hellions, actually not too bad. On a defensive ramp, but then Spirit did the same thing last game. And again, sometimes you catch their units in a more neutral area, and that can cause some more devastation, because they're basically saying, it could be here, it could be there, I'll split my chances. Or they could just find them not microing. They just pounce on them when they're not paying attention, because who would attack me if I have a natural ramp? Oh, okay, so HeRoMaRinE, he didn't go into 5 Reaper 3 Hellion, which I think would have just been completely destroyed. It would have done almost nothing. Bunker would have held the Hellions. Hellions of Spirit would have responded to the Reapers. But he is going into a follow-up medevac tank drop, and I think if you combine these two and you hit one place or another, that's going to find some damage. Now, what HeRoMaRinE doesn't know is that his opponent actually has a bunker. Now, that might not be a problem if he just boosts past the bunker, of course, but if he tries to go over the bunker, it'd be a little awkward. He is going to go for a main attack right into the main base, though, with everything, totally circumventing any bunker that could have been prepared. And that is a decent start. Cyclone of Spirits actually got a Reaper, which was not great for him. Auto turret comes down, gets blasted pretty much immediately. That tank is holding its ground, but keep in mind that tank is not going to do much by itself. So as screwy as that looked, as precarious as this looks for Spirit, it's really not. He can basically just continue on with his life, and that is the most important thing at this point. Keep your build solid. Oh, maybe don't lose your own tank, yeah. And then that's not the most important thing in the world. It really isn't. I mean, that was such a low damage zone. The only way that HeRoMaRinE does a lot of damage is if he actually truly won the battle. So maybe killed the Cyclone, for instance. And then there's nothing stopping him from unsieging and walking to those SCVs or on top of the production line. But that single Cyclone was probably already enough to deter HeRoMaRinE from doing that. HeRoMaRinE was in no position to do damage elsewhere. His tank couldn't even hit the supply depot to kill it. And Spirit comes out of that defense 6 workers ahead. 3rd CC slightly ahead. Everything else looking fairly similar. Barracks similar, Stim similar. Engineer bays are behind for Spirit. But still, I'd say Spirit is happy with how that went down. And there's the engineering base, which Spirit might even be timing out a bit better. HeRoMaRinE didn't have the gas to get his 1-1 started anyways. Now doesn't have the minerals. It's very close. I'm really digging deep to find the differences as we go into the 3 base setup for both players. Spirit's, I think unintentionally, not saturating his 3rd gas. That was actually his 4th. Took his 3rd on the outside. And no, that's it. That's actually it. The barracks, again, once again, very similar timed. Unit type is, I would say, well, 3 Ravens does not hit like it used to. If this was old Raven auto turret, I'd say 3 Ravens is definitely better than 11 more Marines, but I'm still gonna say that it is. So I think I like Spirit's composition better too. A couple of Vikings, 3 Ravens, a little lower on the Marine count. That's fine. Medevac count is going to be different. So HeRoMaRinE again maybe playing more with mobility. Spirit looking for a direct fight at some point. Well, there you go. HeRoMaRinE already using it just to a little bit of effect. Supply depot getting taken down. Good interference matrix. Tags that. Still won't be able to kill the drop. And I think this Marine that was scouting potential 4th base just witnessed the 2 medevacs heading towards the north, which was brilliant there. Now, Spirit also had a supply depot, but it is possible HeRoMaRinE could have evaded that. Yeah, exactly what we're seeing. But yeah, that Marine did see it. Spirit's Vikings are now in position. This is exactly what Spirit would have wanted it to happen like in the first game. He was instead just completely unknowing of the drop or the split of the army. Now he's got all the details. He does have enough units to defend. Now, Dragonscale is a tricky place to be a defender. There are so many open locations that it's really hard to put your army in a place that defends more than one location. You can kind of get 2 a little bit, but it's such a huge concave. They come in through here. They could still spread out before the tanks do maximum damage. They could come in through here, so get this amazing spread out. It's tough. And then if you don't defend this portion, well, obviously they can go right into your natural, and that's pretty devastating. So you do need to spread quite a bit. Really track what your opponent's doing, and then when you figure you got the chance, I guess pull the trigger. That's exactly what Spirit's doing, taking 3 tanks out of the equation, as well as an anti-armor missile. Does lose 2 out of 3 of his Ravens, but wins the battle ultimately. And this was while he didn't have combat shield, so he was actually supposed to be at a severe disadvantage for this engagement. HeRoMaRinE actually might have seen him without combat shields and said, well, no way he's actually going to come and kill me. And Spirit said, well, actually, yes, I am. And as he potentially goes for a counter, which I think he really should, scans if there is a drop or something over there, if the army will reposition. If he goes for a counter, he will have his combat shields, and he will have his single Raven, I guess, still alive, and he will have about 50 more army supply. He's going to go for more than just a counterattack, though. He's going to go for a counter, basically doom drop into the natural of HeRoMaRinE, or a couple of SCVs will definitely die, perhaps the engineering bay as well. That drop that Spirit was scanning for now arriving. Kill 7 SCVs, but will not be able to target fire this command center. And that might have given HeRoMaRinE a false impression that Spirit was still back at home. Absolutely not. Tank siege up in the natural, and that natural of HeRoMaRinE is going to be exactly like I said. A handful of SCVs killed, maybe the engineering base. A tough nut to crack. Spirit will eventually get cleaned up as HeRoMaRinE's tanks responds, but 9 SCVs, and yes, 1 of the engineering base. It is the armor, not the attack, which isn't exactly ideal for Spirit. And actually, it's not going to go down. Quick repair there from HeRoMaRinE, never mind, so just the SCVs, but it just opened up that opportunity on the 3rd base. HeRoMaRinE completely out of position as Liberators and tanks siege up. 3rd orbital gonna get sniped by the Marines as well. HeRoMaRinE's 4th base also under fire as you get a planetary, and HeRoMaRinE is getting out positioned and is very close to dying. He is on death's door right now. He's got nothing going for him. A little bit later to those upgrades, lower in SCVs, lower in base count, lower in army supply. HeRoMaRinE will need to take 1 miracle engagement to actually win this game. He's going to try and at least blitz into the natural and hopefully grab 20 or so SCVs, but there is actually a defensive Marine squad waiting to deal with this. HeRoMaRinE should not tap out yet. He is still holding on for dear life, but if he doesn't make something really bold happen soon, he will die a very slow, but so painful death. I guess slow deaths are usually pretty painful, so. And Spirit's just gonna make sure that nothing miraculous happens. He's gonna take away all the potential of a miracle. He's gonna take away the option of a doom drop with a turret ring around his main and his 3rd. Maybe even his 4th base. Wouldn't be a bad idea to put him a turret over here, I think. Sensor towers covering all of the important spots. Supply depots covering everything else. HeRoMaRinE does temporarily have a chance as his army supply grows. It is going to be bigger than Spirit's, right? By about 10 supply, because that's the difference in their workers. But can he actually find an opening? Cracking a purposefully defensive Terran, as they're also maxed out, is notoriously difficult to do. The Spirit is slightly out of position. Those tanks are only somewhat covering his 3rd base, but fortunately he still has those Liberators in play too, so HeRoMaRinE can't draw any closer to the 3rd base. Gonna try and go for the main base, but there are missile turrets and Vikings already firing away. Some of the units will unload. A lot of Marines, in fact, do, but are Marines really going to cut it as Spirit's own Marines respond? It should be fine for him. Tanks re-siege for HeRoMaRinE, a little outside of the third base, but still killing some SCVs, and HeRoMaRinE is trying to make this work. His main base pickup is going to be somewhat successful, so he goes back onto Spirit's third base, where 2 tanks will not be enough to stop him from causing that third CC to lift off. Spirit taking 20 SCVs worth of damage, falling behind in that army supply. Starting to look like he is potentially going to let this one go, but at least he saves the third orbital. He still has a couple of Liberators to help out, still has a couple of tanks. He is a little low on that tank count, though. I think that might be his biggest problem. That was the last 2 tanks that he had. 2 more just popped, and there's a third one somewhere. I'm not sure where, but HeRoMaRinE has 8 tanks that are actually potentially going to be the reason he comes back. Spirit could not break the tank line, whereas HeRoMaRinE could, because the tank line actually wasn't that impressive for Spirit. He was late to defending his third base, and then the actual tank count that he had was not particularly impressive. He goes for a concave on top of the units. HeRoMaRinE was lacking Marines. Now there's a drop as well on top of the tanks. I just talked about HeRoMaRinE's tank count being his best feature, and all but one will die. Spirit is not going to let this game go, not yet anyways, but he has taken a pretty bad blow. It's not fatal at all, and he grabs that last tank, 2 more reinforce, but Spirit, he actually almost let this one go. Or HeRoMaRinE forced him. He was like a parent trying to get something out of like a toddler's grip, you know, and the toddler's surprisingly strong. But Spirit holds on, man. He holds on to that gum wrap or whatever the hell it was. Still, Spirit in trouble. Down 20 army supply. He is back on 3 bases, right? So they're both on equal bases. His 4th base is coming up, though, so that'll be a secure planetary that's going to be very difficult for HeRoMaRinE to defeat if he's in a hurry. And this game is now all about that speed. Who's reacting faster? Who's setting up double-pronged attacks faster? Who's reading the situation faster? And HeRoMaRinE did just transfer over his orbital, so keep that in mind. He still only has 2 orbitals, not 3. Spirit has 3 orbitals, but just 1 is a mining. It's not landed either, so... I guess it was landed at some point. It's used up its energy. Another drop into that main base. Now that Spirit doesn't have the low ground secured, the high ground will always be something he has to worry about, so that's a big bummer. I guess the Liberator kind of takes advantage of the scenario, though. Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad. But HeRoMaRinE is just looking to find him out of position. He's either going to crack him in the main or crack him in the natural. Either way, he's going to give him a lot of trouble. Spirit can't really escape either direction, right? Can't escape out of his own main. I guess if he had a medevacs, but he doesn't have any medevacs. 1, literally 1. He went for Liberator range. So it's really quite an interesting idea to go for Liberator range in a game like this, where it is so razor thin. You are very defensive. As long as the Liberators abuse some of the terrain, then more power to them, but they are snipeable, right, by the Marines. So this is a terrible fight from HeRoMaRinE. Oh, no. Oh, no, I don't actually know why HeRoMaRinE did that. He must have thought there weren't as many tanks as there were. That was weird. Well, I guess they weren't siege initially, so I guess I can give them that much. But yeah, the Liberator range. I mean, it gives them that extra range to abuse some of the terrain levels, I suppose. But it's, you know, it's not seen as beneficial as maybe it would be if you're facing a Protoss. Just because when you do trade out the Stalkers, which you would, but they had +2 as well, you're like, damn, I killed a couple of Stalkers, that's fantastic. You kill a couple of Marines, that's not really, you know, like, Obviously, the goal of Spirit is to just find areas that he can situate siege units, tanks, or Liberators, and then just keep them there. And then you kind of can, like, you know, wash your hands of that mess. That would be ideal, but again, the mobility and the type of army that a Terran has facing another Terran is so different to what we really consider Liberators to be good against. But I'm harping too much on that because otherwise Spirit has been winning these fights. He was probably even taken aback by HeRoMaRiNE's aggressive, his tenacity, almost making this game his once again. So he did lose some of those battles. But once he had a handle on things, once he maybe calmed himself down, he has been taking better battles. And HeRoMaRiNE is actually the one that maybe started to get a little flustered, wanted to end the game, push up that ramp. Fairly questionable fight. And Spirit now leads 30, 40 army supply. Still producing Liberators, by the way. But has also at least rebuilt his medevac count up to 5, so that's a much healthier number. Still on at least 2 orbitals. That third one did die. It was already injured and it was trying to run away, so it died. Starport's going to be saved, just barely. Spirit has 40 more army supply to his opponent. HeRoMaRiNE's only on 0 tanks. That's pretty bad. And without any tanks, HeRoMaRinE actually cannot defend. He couldn't afford to build tanks. That was the problem. So GG, Spirit holds on. And runs away with that candy wrapper. The toddler left the house, is currently at the park running around. Because you could not just rip that out of his grip, man. That HeRoMaRinE freaking tried.